y'all to the VRNation station. We're diving deep into vacation rental sensations.
Now that you know a little bit about our association, what makes you most excited to come to the conference?
It was fascinating. A lot of times when we speak at associations, you have to already be a member before you're allowed to come in. And what was really fascinating was to learn that you guys are opening the door to just say, hey, everybody who wants to come and learn, do it. And if they like what you do, or when they like what you do, you have all these other opportunities. Not just an association where you might get a newsletter, but you guys were telling me like you have mastermind groups and all these different opportunities. I think you said there's an advocacy group that can teach you things. It's so much for people to learn who feel so alone and isolated when they have something.
Absolutely, yes. And there is an opportunity to join at our conference if you want to become a member so that you have all of these great benefits throughout the year. I mean, everything from, vendor discounts, joining in one of our mastermind groups, learning about advocacy in our area because the laws are changing so fast, and network with new businesses and learn from your peers. That's what we're all about.
And that's what the out with the old and in with bold is all for, right?
That's right.
Hey everyone, and welcome back to the VRNation station, where short-term rental pros get real, talk smart about strategies and everything in between. I'm your host, Jamie Hansen, and today we're diving into a hot topic that could hit your bottom line harder than you think: tariffs. With new trade policies announced by the Trump campaign, tariffs on goods from China and Mexico are back in the headlines, and STR managers across the country, especially those near the Canada or Mexico border, need to start paying attention. So, how will these tariffs impact your property operations, turnover budgets, and renovation plans? What can you do now to stay ahead? And how can you protect your margins while maintaining a killer guest experience? We've got you covered, so let's break it on down. And I'm going to introduce a few friends of mine. So we have some of our usual suspects, but I'm going to introduce Wendy Hightower. She's new to the podcast today. So Wendy, welcome.
Hi,
Appreciate
thank
you being here. Do you
Glad
want
to
to
be
tell us
here.
a little bit about maybe Casago Frio River and just where you're from and what you guys are about?
Yeah, absolutely. So Casago Frio River is located in Concan, Texas. We're a tiny little town just north of Uvalde, Texas. Stone's throw, maybe if you throw really far, 45 minutes from the border. We hit the border in a couple of different directions. Concan is a drive-to destination for most of Texas. We're on the Frio River, as our name mentions, one of the last pristine rivers left in the state of Texas, and folks come during the summer months primarily to hang out. And so we've been in the vacation rental space for 7 years. I've been in property management since my very first job ever back when I was 16 years old, and have kind of evolved into the STR space at this point. We've been here in Concan since 2018 and have seen huge impacts for lots of different reasons, being near the border, and super interested to kind of hear what perspectives are about tariffs for other areas. I can say that I think we are seeing some impact already, both from the visitorship side of it and from the supply chain side of it. So really excited to be here to visit with you all about this.
Awesome. That's terrific, Wendy. I appreciate it. I'm going to introduce Tara Lorimer as well. Tara's been on the podcast previously. She's the vice president of VRNation. Tara, welcome back.
Hi, Jamie. How are you?
I'm doing great, man. I'm doing great. And I'll introduce Blake as well, because Blake's my partner in crime. He's the man behind the scenes. But today, because he's my brother Canadian, he is going to be on the podcast visually as well to talk a little bit about how things are going north of the border. Because obviously, from a VRNation perspective, of course, we're Canadians, our family as well. So it's really kind of a tough situation all the way around. I know I've had conversations with each of you in regards to the tariffs and how things are going. But one thing that I just wanted to kind of throw out there as we started talking about it, a lot of people don't really understand what the tariffs cover and how it might actually impact the short-term rental space, right? So there's a couple different ways that short-term rentals are impacted. One is supply chain, right? I think we talked a little bit about it, depending on where you get your supplies from, whether it's furniture, appliance, your home goods, if there's building materials, obviously there's going to be impacts there. I think that, how we rely on things like big box retailers and e-com platforms Amazon, for example, I know our company depends a lot on Amazon orders as well. And a lot of those goods potentially can flow from China or from Mexico. But one of the other things that's kind of like the bear in the corner, have you, is really talking about how it's impacting occupancies. I think travel fears and things along those lines. So those were three of the big things where I thought, we could start with the tariffs. Wendy, why don't we start with you and maybe talk a little bit about how some of those tariff options affect you?
So a couple of different ways. In preparing for this conversation today, we actually sent out a survey to our email list and through our socials as well, just to kind of ask, is this affecting your summer travel plans? And like I said, we're here in Texas. We're a drive-to market, but in Texas, you can drive for 2 days and still be in Texas. So that doesn't mean a whole lot. But folks are concerned. I think the numbers came down to, we had about 75% of people who said, yeah, not really. I'm still coming to the Frio. It's one of my vacations every year. But 25% of folks did also say, yeah, absolutely. Like I'm having to rethink everything. My retirement plan is tanking, and my money that I was planning on spending on vacation is maybe not going to be there. And so it has been curious, and interesting to see. I think Texans kind of by nature are very bullish on things anyway. And so some of the conversations that happen kind of on our socials and back and forth with emails were interesting, because I think overall, from the visitorship perspective of it, it's on everybody's radar, but I don't think anybody of our visitorship is really going to dig in their heels just yet. Like I said, it came down to about 75%, 25% on those response rates. From a supply chain perspective, I can tell you that we've already started to see kind of backups and impact on that. We are very remote. Our nearest town is Uvalde, which isn't a big town. Our nearest city is San Antonio. If I drive to San Antonio for supplies, it takes me a good hour and a half to 2 hours to get there. We do use Amazon, but our Amazon Prime means that your package might show up eventually. We're certainly not getting anything in 2 to 3 days. And we are starting to see kind of that backlog happen. We've got a property owner who had some stuff shipped to us, an order to be placed a couple of weeks ago, and it showed up on our doorstep right before we started this visit today. So we're seeing that. We're also having some unique kind of challenges with very specified things that we need. We've got lots of swimming pools and hot tubs out here because, again, we're in Texas. It's very hot. You got to have water for these people. And we've got pool equipment that it's never coming in at this point, is what we feel like. And a lot of that stuff, while it is kind of sourced out, the folks that are working with us to get that literally sometimes do drive across the border to Mexico to get it, because it's easier, faster, cheaper. And that has all come to a stop. I'll also say that locally, we're kind of seeing a little bit of panic in folks buying things. We've been to the grocery store and to, kind of our big box retailers, and it feels very COVID-esque. Again, there's not toilet paper, there's not paper towels, there's not cleaning supplies. And so that trickle down is starting to happen, and it is happening very quickly. I think are pretty good at making sure that as far as our supplies that we need to keep running day to day, we did learn with COVID how to kind of backstock that stuff. And so I think, even if the wheels come off completely, we'll make it through this summer. I don't know what anything looks like beyond that, but we are seeing the impact somewhat from the visitorship side and from the supply chain side, and really praying, for lack of a better word, that we do
Sure.
get to make it through this summer without that horrible impact.
That's interesting. That you said that too, that your Amazon doesn't deliver that way. Like we're way up in the mountains up in Idaho, and it's like, our Amazon's actually pretty good. I really can't complain about the delivery times up there. But it does beg a different discussion as far as, the goods. I mean, I think it's simple things like, hot tub supplies, right? Like,
Absolutely.
we use the scum bugs, for hot tubs and things like that. It's like, man, that's those. I'm pretty sure those are made in China. So it's like, yeah, we'll have to probably rethink some of those, but it does make a lot of sense. Tara, Blake, what do you guys think? I mean, is it something that you guys are? Is it different for you? Is it similar in that regard?
Similar. What we're seeing, luxury getaways is about 15, 20 minutes south of the Canadian border. We're halfway between Seattle and Vancouver, BC. We are in an Amazon state. Seattle is headquarters, so we do get our stuff in about 48 hours, even though we are remote in the mountains. But 40% of our business is Canadian visitors, mostly because our ski resort is a third of the price of a ticket at Whistler. So we probably dropped about 40% of our Canadian visitors over the ski season. After, I'd say, January 20th to January 30th, all Canadian reservations started dropping off. It's unfortunate. I was just up in Whistler last weekend, and we had great conversations in the hospitality sphere. I spent 4 days up there, and everybody was super friendly. Everybody in hospitality was awesome. They just said there's a big fear about crossing the border. I think there's a lot of misinformation there, and they're just a little bit scared to come down. They're worried about either getting their passports pulled or getting searched or not being able to come back. So it significantly dropped off our, unfortunately. Hopefully it'll come back within, maybe 60, 90 days as things simmer down or cool down a little bit, perhaps.
Did you guys take Ryan's Tesla up there? He didn't get keyed, did he?
I did drive an EV. I drove an EV to Canada, but I did not drive a Tesla. But as far as supply chain stuff, we haven't seen any issues yet. We haven't seen any price increases. Crossing fingers, no issues yet. I'm sure it's coming.
Yeah. Blake, tell us a little bit from your side of the fence. I'm actually really curious to hear how it is up there.
Well, I think because Canada is in the throes of a federal election right now, so there's a lot of hyperbole that's in the media that's kind of pushing the kind of narratives that Tara just mentioned, the fear of crossing the border. There's stories being run by the national media saying, on a regular basis that Canadians crossing the border, getting their phones confiscated, they're being asked if they support the president, and you could have your computer taken away from you if you got your laptop with you. And it's just, the fact is that those laws have been on the books since 9/11. So ever since the Homeland Security was created, they have the right to take a look inside your electronic devices, and you have to be able to power it up and show what's in there. So that is nothing new, but the election has created it to a hyper level because we're having a tariff election now. It was probably going to be a wipeout of the governing Liberal Party here. But Trump kind of boosted them up by creating the tariffs and saying, why don't you become the 51st state? And then the governing Liberals have used that as a catalyst to drive, Canadian patriotism to rally around them versus our Conservative Party that was in a position to win. So we'll know literally when we're down at the VRNation conference at the end of April here. On April 28th is our E-Day for Canada. So we'll find out if we got a new government. But my feeling is that what you've described, it's a lot of this will start to dissipate once you have a mandated government on the Canadian side. Like now you have somebody who can legitimately negotiate a deal and moving forward from there. But there is concerns on the supply chain. Like, just on the Canadian side for us as a vacation rental management company, we rely on simple things like toilet paper. 90% of toilet paper produced is produced in the United States for us. It's Canadian softwood that's being sent south, that's being created into pulp and converted into toilet paper and being brought back to Canada. So toilet paper, we're watching very closely. And we've already seen it just coming out of COVID over 4 years, how that skyrocketed in price. We haven't seen a significant decline in price on just toilet paper or paper towel. But we are concerned that if tariffs, the softwood lumber dispute side of the tariffs, which is an ongoing issue that's been here, could impact our costs on, simple items, as I said, like toilet paper, paper towel. Obviously, the long-term effects, if this was drag out for a long time, what's this going to do to home building? You can't build a vacation rental affordably if your lumber costs have gone up 25, 30%.
Right.
So there's a lot of things to consider. And then on the travel side, we do have the benefit of a currency that's roughly costs you're getting about a 30+% discount as Americans to travel into Canada. So you've got that currency exchange right away. So that the more the Canadian dollar drops in price, the better it is for British Columbians, because we're not seeing a lot of hostility from Americans about the tariffs. We're seeing actually more sympathy but some of the Canadians up here need to zip it, because they're getting caught up into the hyperbole rather than just saying, let's just see where this is going to land, negotiate a deal, and get past all this stuff. But in the end, it's kind of like a sibling dispute versus two separate countries. We've been, tight neighbors and friends, and matter of fact, most of us have family and friends on both sides of the border all the time. So it's not as simple as, oh, you're China, we're going to cut you off and turn you into Cuba, the North. That's just not going to happen. There's just too many people interconnected. I think it will pass. That's my feeling. But it is, if you're relying off Canadian travelers right now as an American operator, I would be concerned in the short haul. That once this stuff abates, it's all right. But the Canadian dollar is the part to watch even closer, because it's economics that's going to affect it more than it is the current election hyperbole that's going on to try and scare people about staying home, and they're using as election slogans.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. I know that in Yellowstone, so we're outside West Yellowstone, for those that don't know where Island Park is. But again, it's one of those where the travel. So we're not really sure what we're going to face. Being a national park, it's a unique thing, because realistically, domestic travel in down economic times historically has really started flocking more to national parks. We're hoping that's the case. Our first quarter was not like that. Our first quarter was rough. I mean, we felt the same pain. I think everybody did. I was just looking through the report out from Matt Barabanich. Anyway, but Cleveland Research, and they were talking about how Q1 was rough, and that spring break, because half the spring breaks are going on right now. I didn't even know that, because my kids are all in college at this point. But it's crazy, like the nobody's traveling because their kids don't even get out until closer to Easter. So that's something that's definitely impacted us. Now all our snow is pretty much gone, and we're in mud season. It's not gone, but it's mud season now, so it's tough to bring people in. And I think, Tara, you guys have the best snow. I think you guys have the best snow in the lower U.S. anyway, right?
We have them. Yeah, we're over 500 inches with the most snow, but it's blue skies and sunshine out here, and everybody's in gardening mode. So still very few skiers. It was 70 degrees last weekend here. So yeah, we have a lot of snow, but people aren't interested.
Oh, that's unfortunate. So yeah, that's where it's interesting. I know that Yellowstone just opened for non-motorized traffic. I want to say a couple days ago. So there's like almost a full month where they open the roads, but they don't let you bring in the cars. So we're seeing a little bit of uptick, but we actually do get a pretty healthy amount of Canadian travelers that stay with us. I think up to the tune of like anywhere between 8 to 10% are Canadians that come and stay with us. So it's we're not looking forward to the impacts of that, but it's something that we feel. Interestingly enough, as I kind of went back through and I was looking at some of the notes, so I think everyone here, well, with the exception of me, all of you guys have talked about some thought processes, like how you would revert back to a strategy similar to COVID. Let's maybe dive into that just a little bit more. Wendy, I'm interested in hearing what you see, because you had said that point. You're like, it's kind of like COVID. We were going back to this. What are some key strategies you would suggest if you had a new property manager that you were talking to about how to offset some of these concerns? What's the strategy you would probably employ for them?
It's a good question. I think what we learned was that we've always operated in a remote area, so we know that our supplies were a little bit more difficult to get to and everything, and that backstock of stuff has become more important. It definitely taught us that we needed to make sure that we had even more back stock. So we didn't run out of, like you said, the toilet paper, paper towels, those types of things, because that's a very real thing that happened and a very real concern. Like I said, an impact that we are already starting to see on our shelves. I don't know that I would have any good advice because, again, and I feel like I've said this every year since we have purchased this business from my husband's family, I'm so tired of living through historic events. I just want one operational year that is somewhat normal.
But let me second that one, right? Like a year without floods, a year without landslides. Hey, we'd
I
love that if
mean,
by us.
we've had historic droughts. We ran out of water 2 years ago, and then again last year. I'd really like to not live through his history any longer for just an operating season. So I don't know that I have any great sage advice other than buckle down and do your very best, and remember that we are in the hospitality business, and so when folks come to you that are frustrated that maybe they only got 5 rolls of paper towels for their stay versus the normal 10 that they're expecting, kind of let them know and invite them into that challenge as well and say, hey, we're all kind of in a position right now where we need to be good stewards of what we do have available to us. This is how we're trying to do it, and we certainly hope you'll hop on board with us, and just always come at it from that hospitality perspective, is the best that I can say at this point, because again, we have prepared in kind of having the backstock supplies, but that's only because we lived through it. If you're going to start going through it now, I will pray for you, and I'll give you some paper towels if we've got some left over.
No, that makes a ton of sense. It's actually sage advice, honestly, it is, and it's one of those where just handling it with the guest experience and with the guest in mind, and the hospitality flair is really, it's an important way to think, because I think people are going to get frustrated, and obviously when frustrations rise, it doesn't usually end up in a great situation. Tara, what are your thoughts? I know that you're a planner, so what kind of strategies do you employ when it comes to these situations?
You know me well. You know I'm a proper prior preparation person. So
That's right.
we just double down, and we just did another 90-day order yesterday to stay ahead. So we probably are 6 months ahead now on any supplies. Fortunately, we have the space in the room to store stuff, and we have a laundromat at our facility, so we buy even more supplies. We just did a massive linen order for all of our properties for the year also. So I just try to stay ahead and then pivot if something runs in short supply. Typically, everything we do is eco-friendly. All of our paper products are chlorine-free. Everything is 100% recycled. And sometimes if I can't source that really unique niche stuff that we buy, then I have to compromise a little bit and get something a little bit more standardized. But so far, we're just trying to stay ahead on supplies. We are checking prices to make sure that they aren't skyrocketing yet. We have yet to see anything more than a 2 to 3% increase in pricing in the last 30 days. I anticipate something's coming somewhere. It hasn't happened yet, but we're just trying to stay ahead of the curve.
Right. No, that makes sense. It's interesting. I mean, it's also you also bring up something that is a constraint that I don't often think of, and it's just simply space. Right. Like, I mean, if you're ordering 6 pallets of toilet paper, it's like not everybody's got this a spot for 6 pallets of toilet paper.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's definitely gonna create some unique challenges for sure. Blake, how about from your side? I mean, you have some strategies that you've laid out for to try and get through this?
Well, I've seen some really good strategies starting to roll out on social media marketing, where people are posting within the tourism sector, messaging saying, don't let the tariffs impact travelers. They're here to support your economy. And so there's an internal marketing to Canadians to, not, be aggressive to anybody traveling from the US into British Columbia and giving them a hard time over tariffs they have no control over. They're here to spend money and support the local economy. So that was really good. It's messaging. Again, on the marketing side, I think try to stay local. If you're not having a hard time drawing from customers from abroad that may be making decisions over tariffs and other measures that may come into effect. As those same reports you were talking about earlier, from Cleveland Research, Jamie. Those, I was just reading about European travel. It's all down. It's down from Asia. People are going to pull back, right? They're going to probably stay more local. And I would say that in the United States, you might see a little bit of a return to COVID-like travel where you have that sort of hyper local traveler. And I would focus in on marketing on that for now. If you're not going to count on international travelers coming in, or multi-state far, far away, then see if you can draw them in local as much as you can. Provide locals discounts, much like Hawaiians do,
Right.
and they do that all the time. And that's a good way to kind of mitigate if you are broadly marketing through, not through your own channels, but even through the OTAs that are trying to push down, but all of them are seeing down numbers. So it's not something that they're seeing significant growth. They're seeing significant down. And this was a trend before tariffs. So this isn't something we should just blame purely on tariffs. It's a
Right.
trend that's happening overall. But right now, my business partner, he said is, just be the last person standing, do everything you can to make the prices right, keep your homeowners comfortable, because that's the hard part. They're your bread and butter in your business. You have to make sure you're telling them, keeping in communication with them about the circumstances, that we'll get through it. It's going to be temporary. And even if it's a year, we'll get through it. We'll find ways to make it work, and just be creative. Think outside the box, and I know it's kind of a broad term, but you got to find ways to survive and keep your homeowners happy, because some of them, as I said, are going to panic. Some of them are looking at their stock market portfolio collapsing. Oh, I might have to sell my property now. And they're going to go on they're going to be worried about revenues. They're going to be worried about all these things. You see a lot of retirees worried right now because they're drawing off of investments that, in their retirement, and that just got cut. But it depends on what they're investing in. I mean, every day it's like a roller coaster right now. I mean, I saw gold stocks through the roof today, but yeah, you just got to be creative. You got and work with the messaging, and be out there. But like everyone else has said earlier today, watch the numbers. We haven't seen a dramatic shift, but it's going to happen. A lot of us are reliant off of China on both sides of the border. China provides a lot of supplies. I'm a proponent that we should have more things produced locally as much as possible. And maybe this is the kick in the fanny that we all need in both our countries, to start producing more local as much as you can. And
I
support.
agree with you, man. I think I'm going to take us in a different direction. A little off script here, guys, because there's a theme that I'm hearing, and I'm really interested to hear, what your guys' thoughts are on this, because the one thing that I'm struggling with personally, right? So the media, right? The media, it's just it's crazy. Like, I can't even turn the TV on, and I can't look at X. I can't look. I mean, I just can't. Personally, I just can't. And it's creating such a fear everywhere. I mean, I have friends from Europe that are, texting me, asking me like questions, like I have no idea how to even answer. How are you guys having conversations with homeowners about this? I mean, it's tough. Like, I'm looking at, man, we had a down Q1, right? And it was, whatever the reasoning was, the tariffs weren't even really discussed at that point. But now all of a sudden it's like you've got this uh, balloon hanging over everybody's head. How are you having conversations with homeowners and prepping them for the fact that, revenues are probably going to be a little bit lower now in 25?
I think we're bracing them, honesty, open conversations, letting them know that, it's slower nationwide. It's not necessarily just our, small community. Or it's global. We're pivoting, going back to guerrilla marketing. We have targeted all of our Canadian clientele with their own discounts. They're already paying 30% more. So anybody that wants to come down, we're offering them a discount to cross the border. We have brought in multiple Canadian influencers to stay with us. that have a large reach up there, if they're going to come down and it's safe to travel and it's, it's uncomplicated and that they can see that their peers are traveling, we're offering them a discount to their reach just to try and get more eyes and more honesty down here. So I think it's just being open to communicating with your owners, letting them know in advance, bracing them for a slower season, and letting them know how you're pivoting, what changes you're making, what efforts are you doing in order to capture what travelers are out there.
Gotcha. I gotcha. Wendy, what are your thoughts on that?
We saw that there was going to be a downturn in this operating season anyway. Very early on, the numbers showed us, we're kind of a unique market in that we're a drive-to market. As I said, we're also a legacy market. Folks that have been coming to ConCan have been coming for 100 years. And their families have come, and it's a generational thing. And so we saw in our pre-booking, which starts, at the end of the summer, sometimes even in the summer for the following summer, that those numbers were off a little bit. And we've got some other unique challenges. First of all, as I mentioned, we're 30 miles north of Uvalde, and pretty much everybody, at least in our part of the world, knows Uvalde, and that's got a kind of a negative connotation with it. And so that has already had an impact. We're also in a historic drought. We, as I mentioned 2 years ago, ran out of water, and that's not a phrase. We ran out of water. We had no water. We had to truck water in overnight to fill the water wells so that the guests could shower the next morning. So we've already kind of seen those impacts reduce our visitorship. So we started prepping our owners and having very honest and difficult conversations, saying, here's what we're forecasting. In addition, we're also kind of on a real estate bubble. We had a lot of folks who discovered ConCan during COVID because, again, drive to market, let's get outdoors. We're near one of the most popular state parks here in Texas. And people that had never been here before purchased houses and spent way more than they should. Now they're kind of wanting that investment back. So we've had here in our tiny little town, I mentioned there's 109 of us that live here. We've had 36 houses listed on the for sale for over a year. So we're already saturated in that capacity. So what we've really done and really been intentional about in these conversations with these owners is just stick with us. We made it through COVID. We made it through the drought. We're going to make it through this, but here's how we're going to pivot. We are going to do some discounts that we hadn't before. We're going to go ahead and reduce those, nightly minimums. We're also going to make sure that our guests know that they are absolutely the most special thing to us. And we're going to really, really drill down and understand who has a birthday when they're coming, who has an anniversary, how many years have they been coming this time, what is their very favorite place to go and eat, where do they, what kind of is the flow of their vacation, and really paying attention to that. We've been able to keep track of those metrics, and it's something that we've been intentional about. And so now we're getting to see kind of the fruits of that labor. By and large, our owners are willing to stick with us and stay in it with us. There's always going to be a handful of them that doesn't really matter what you do. It's not ever going to be good enough, or done well enough, and they would have done it differently. And we invite them to maybe go ahead and take the opportunity to do that at this point. But we, like I said, we're very transparent and honest about it. Here's what we're up against. Here's what we're doing about it. Here's what we've identified. And I think, as long as you can have those conversations and be very upfront and say, we know we're up against it. We know that makes you up against it, but we're in it together and we're going to do the very best we can. And again, just always coming back to that hospitality mindset, we've got to make sure that our guests know that we are so glad they're here, so glad that they continue to travel regardless of what the river situation is, whether there's, water for them to enjoy both in the river and at the end of the day when they want to come back and shower, and making it through all of those things, just having really tough conversations and letting them know they can be confident in you to walk them through it.
That's really sound. I like that a lot. Actually, I'm going to have to borrow some of that thought process because unfortunately we didn't get in front of ours. We have some owners that we get in front of. We have a lot of owners that are not necessarily as tuned in, right? So we have a lot of investor type owners, which I don't know is better or worse in those scenarios, because they're really waiting on that ROI. And I know there's a lot of people that are very tight right now and they're going, hey man, I didn't have a good winter and my cash flow situation is really, really sucking wind. Like we got to get moving. And I'm like, Amen, brother. Yeah, we do. Tell your friends to come to Island Park. But yeah, I mean, it's tough, right? Because it's hard to balance that with, hey, and what you said previously too. It's like, man, just one just good year, like man, like just a normal
Just one.
year, decent snow, right? Decent weather in the summer, nothing happening in the parks. That'd be great, right? That'd be great. Blake, what are your thoughts? I mean, I know that you have a lot of homeowners that kind of come to you, and you guys have had your own absolute nightmare of regulations going. So
Oh
I
yeah,
don't know if I want to ask because it's easily a double
yeah,
whammy for you up there.
yeah. This podcast will go to 2 hours if you want me getting going on that.
Yeah, Wendy
Uh,
probably doesn't even know about that, but
yeah,
Victoria, they had a whole slew of regulations that basically cut their supply in half. Like it was, or
I
even less than that. Yeah.
it's
So
been
yeah.
it's funny. Our provincial government had made a decision that short-term rentals are the bane towards housing. And so they made a secret deal with the Hotel Association to basically create a crony capitalist type of legislation that provides a monopoly for the hotels and makes it nearly impossible for short term rental operators to operate in most markets that are, I would call, the top leisure market destinations in British Columbia, which are a lot of the cities, right? Vancouver, Victoria. We call it the Golden Triangle, Whistler, Vancouver, Victoria. But specifically, Vancouver and Victoria. Whistler has not been hit as hard yet, but they created what was called the BC Short Term Rental Accommodations Act. You now have to get registered provincially, and they have a principal residency requirement now. And they've rebranded what short-term rentals are. And I've never seen this in any jurisdiction anywhere in the world. Short-term rentals, as defined under our government, is now 90 days. Anything 90 days or less is short-term rental. And we're like, there's nowhere, any jurisdiction, not even our municipalities or regional districts, which are the equivalent of your counties, have anything that define as short-term rental. Uh, well, basically anything less than 30 is generally
Mhm.
what's used everywhere. So it's made things very difficult because we have, the tariffs are now just sort of compounding on our own tariffing internally by our own government. And which is fascinating. What we're trying to fight through here is we're trying to promote stay local. Our provincial government is trying to tell people travel local this year, support Canada, support Canadian businesses and tourism, and they just cut 3/4 of the supply out, and there's nowhere to stay. Right, so unless you want to go stay in your tent in your downtown or spend $500 to $600 a night in a one-room hotel room, that's it's a real difficult situation to overcome. Yeah, we lost right now we've lost 40% of our inventory. We're probably going to lose a few more because of this act. We're trying to gain some right now and remarketing to specific regions that we know are currently safe. But yeah, with that, with the tariffs and how you're trying to keep people's chins up, and it's like first it's the legislation, then it's taxation, and now it's tariffs, right? It's like, oh my, it's a triple entente
I
of
feel bad. Like I hit the trigger button, right?
yeah.
It's like there's two ways to really
But
trigger a Canadian from Vancouver. One is to talk about the housing, and the other one's to talk about the Canucks.
yeah,
The last time they won the Stanley Cup, right? Like that's the end all be all at that point.
that's
But
right. Well, it's
yeah,
amazing. We're one of Canada's top tourist destinations is British Columbia, both internationally and obviously domestically within Canada. We're the only market that especially on the coast here, where we have a temperate climate. Temperate climate meaning here it doesn't snow all winter long like most of Canada gets. We're very much like Tara down below. We're stone throw away with rain, right? That's kind of the Pacific Northwest in the winter is rain, a little bit of snow from time to time, but primarily rain. But compared to other markets, it's better than 40 below, and no sunlight or anything. You can't go
Easy.
out.
Some of us like that 40 below weather. As long as
But
your snowmobile's grips are heated, then you're good. Well, I'll tell you what, you guys, we're at that fun point in the podcast where I want to start maybe heading back towards the closing segment. So maybe we just talk about some of the takeaways for folks who are listening. And essentially, so if I had to throw a few out, like one of them is going to be like really review your supply chain, right? Like really take a look at what are the items that are mission critical, what are the items that and if you listen to what Wendy and Tara are saying, right? So if you have an idea of what you can get ahead of in your supply chain and you have a place to put them, right? Don't just order stuff and put it out in the backyard. But it's like, as long as you have a place to do it, review your supply chain, take a look, right? The second point, which obviously Tara does a good job of, is buy ahead, right? She's 90 days out with her orders. Really just focus your energy on, what you should buy ahead, what you really, again, toilet paper, right? You go back to COVID times, what were the goods we ran out, right? So buying ahead is going to be important specifically for those items. Paper towels in Wendy's example. The other part too is just talking about, as we look at our pricing, really kind of understand the messaging, right? I mean, it's one of those where, I guess if you said maintaining an exceptional guest experience is mission critical, I think when you really outlined the importance of really understanding the guest, their vacation, their experience, what's important to them, what makes them feel special. Tara had made the comment too that she's adjusting her prices specifically with Canadian guests as well, where taking consideration the difference between a Canadian and American dollar. So the third was just pricing strategically and making sure you understand. The fourth one, which I think Blake has called out, is stay informed. Really dig in and understand your policies. Get ahead of where the what's happening, especially local regulations. How things are going to impact travel, right? That's going to be key. Like we have to, from a Cabino perspective, we have to be informed on what's going on in the national park, like what's going on in Yellowstone, what's going on in the Smoky Mountain National Park. These are two areas that we have properties where we just want to make sure, like, if there's anything that might cause hiccups, we get ahead of it and we work back with our guests, we work back with our homeowners. And then the last part, which we didn't really bring up, I think, is talk to your vendors, right? So if you have vendors that you work with, I know, for example, from our perspective, I would work back with maybe my hot tub suppliers, right? So making sure that whatever goods that they're ordering, that we're not going to run into any problems with. For those folks, I know, Tara, you have some properties in Arizona that have pools, right? So that's something that might be there. HVAC supplies, just things like that really would be a key thing to make sure your vendors are aware of and that you're on top of. Anything else you think from an actionable takeaway that would make the most sense to just try and re-ingrain in people's mind?
One thing I could recommend, it's more of a political activist type of position, but write your local representatives in all levels of government that have any position to make change and at least voice your concerns to a higher level. It's always good to keep them in the loop and tell them how it's affecting your marketplace. Let them know to put pressure up the chain to whoever it is. And I would suggest keep doing that and keep the political pressure on to resolve these issues quickly, because it's, we need to have a stable economy for everybody involved.
Right. No, that's a good point. Wendy or Tara, anything else you want to add?
I just think people need to stay flexible, and what worked yesterday might not work tomorrow. So if you have to change up your marketing campaigns, or if you have to make adjustments or market in a different way or get more creative, don't be afraid to do it.
Good call up. Wendy,
Yeah,
any thoughts?
exactly. Yeah, I mirror that as well. It's a fluid situation. I think that we need to remember that we're not going to be real rigid here because we don't have the ability to. So we've got to understand that it is continuing. It's a fluid situation. I think if we can be a little bit patient, understand that we're kind of at the beginning of the stages of this, and just hang on and see how it plays out. We'll come through on the other side. We always do, but definitely, like Tara said, we can't be rigid right now.
Absolutely right. Absolutely right. Well, I'll tell you what, you guys, I really appreciate all of your time on Friday afternoon. I wish you all a great weekend. Unless there's anything else you want, I will just go ahead and run us through our outro. So we're going to wrap for this episode of the VRNation station. And for anybody listening, remember, staying informed is just the beginning. The real power comes from preparing, pivoting, and connecting with others who are navigating the same shifting landscape. If you're near a border town and already feeling the pinch from these trade charges, I'd love to hear from you. Reach out, and we may feature your story in a future episode or post. Don't forget to subscribe, share this episode with your network, and head over to vrnation.com for more resources and advocacy updates. Other than that, until next time, stay bold, stay sharp, and keep leading the charge for our short-term rentals. Thanks, everybody. Have a great day.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank y'all.
Welcome y'all to the VRNation station. We're diving deep into vacation rental sensations. From management tips to the latest creation, join us each week for some sparkle and conversation. VRNation station, tune in and feel the thrill.